Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here with my weekly wrap up. I'm going to be going over the books that I read from September 29th. So we're finishing out the last September reads and then to October 5th. I will say hopefully this is a pretty quick video because I didn't have the best reading week this last week. And it's not because it was bad books, it was just a me thing. So let's quickly dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, so just this week has been tough. Honestly, like I didn't read as much as I usually do, and I took a few days to read a book that usually wouldn't take me that long, and it wasn't the book's fault because it was a fantastic book. It was a me thing. I think I got a little bit burnt out with this last month of reading because I did read 40 books for the romance readathon, so I was really going hard with it. And then also this last week at work was a lot. Like my boss was on PTO and his boss came in to visit, so I was helping out with that, then training, and just so much going on that honestly I read a lot of audiobooks and I usually listen to them a lot of the time at work, and I wasn't really able to this week. So anyways, it doesn't really matter. I just wasn't sure if I should even film this video because I only have 5 books that I read this last week, but I figured I would just still do it because I don't want to make a super long video the next week. I will actually be talking about 6 books in this because once again I forgot to bring up one of my books from last week's wrap up, so I don't know how I've done that 2 times this last month, so I apologize, but I'm going to be going over that book quickly and then we will get to my week's reads. Once again, if you are new to my channel, I do weekly wrap-ups. I go over each book that I read in the month. Just to let you know, I am a little late. I am going to film my monthly wrap-up here too. So I do a monthly wrap-up, go over the top books that I read in my stats. So that should be coming later this week. I'm a little late getting that up because things have been crazy. So anyways, I want to go over the book that I forgot to talk about first, and that was, oops, let me find it. Hold on. Okay, sorry, I had to find it in my last week because I wrote it in my last week's notes, but I didn't talk about it. So again, last week I should have brought this up, but I read Rhapsodic by Thallassa. I picked this up for the readathon because it had more gothic vibes. And I ended up getting it on Audible Plus, so it's available there if you're interested. It was, let's see here, the first book in the Bargainer series. And I thought that this was really interesting. I like the world building. I've only read one Thallassa, and that was Pestilence. I still need to continue with that series, and I haven't. And I really liked this one because we have Callie and Des, and Callie is actually a siren. So this is a fantasy kind of darker elements kind of vibes going on. She is a siren, and when she was like 16, I think it was, she ends up killing her stepfather in defense because he was actually, you know, abusive with her and sexually abused her. And so she kills him and she's left with this big mess. And so she happens to know he has like this card for this bargainer you can make a deal with. And so she calls to this bargainer, and that is Des, and he shows up, and she wants him to like clean up the mess, like get rid of the body, like fix this for her. He doesn't usually do this with minors or any of that kind of stuff because if you make a deal with him, you know, you owe him kind of thing. But he ends up doing it for her, and he does it for free. But she ends up kind of like being really lonely, kind of an outcast. And she keeps calling to the bargainer to kind of hang out with her. And so at that age, they kind of form this friendship. And every time she hangs out with him, she has like a bead that's on this bracelet that are all these favors she owes him for. And so in this book, you're going from the current timeline where she is now as an adult to flashbacks to this time. So right now she's basically kind of like a private investigator doing that kind of stuff with like her best friend. And she uses her abilities as a siren to get confessions out of these horrible men, like who are, you know, pedophiles or scum, and gets it so they will get caught. Because she is a siren, she can use her ability to get them to confess. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the bargainer shows back up in her life. He had basically kind of left her after things went down in the past, and so she was brokenhearted because she really fell in love with him, and you know, he just left her. So there are reasons that happen, but now he comes back and he wants her to pay off her debt because she owes all those beads, and he needs her help in his land because he is actually Fae. And I think he's kind of like a Fae king type of thing. And he needs help because these warrior women and people are going missing. There's these like strange babies that come out of this. And so he needs her help. And so she goes over to his world to help him out. And then obviously they're going to rediscover their feelings. This is kind of like a fated mates type of feeling to it too. My only issue with this was it might have been the audiobook that did it, but it was so much back and forth, constant, like every other chapter going back to when she was younger, and I didn't really think we needed that many flashbacks. It kind of took me out of the story. I'm not like a huge fan of constant time jumps or back flashbacks, and I just think there were too many. It wasn't really that needed. We could have used a couple of those, not every other chapter, because you would just be getting into the time of what's going on in the current time and then be another flashback. So it just kind of took me a little bit out of the story. But I did really think this was fun. I think it was hot. I really loved Des. He's very possessive, and I liked this world that she built. So I will definitely check out the other books in the series for sure. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, so then I finally got to the Legacy of God series, and I read God of Malice by Rina Kent. Side note, this is my favorite cover model. I've had him on like P.S. You're Intolerable. I know he's on a couple other ones too. I became so obsessed with this guy. I follow him on Instagram now too. But like, he is like literally the freaking hottest cover model. And I'm so glad I got these books before they change, since she is getting picked up. And they're all gonna basically have discreet type of covers. And you know, I hate discreet covers. So I'm so excited. I actually had Jen from the Book Refuge annotate the series for me because I'm in her Patreon. So I had a great time with this. A vlog will be coming soon. I'm not sure when because I haven't gotten to the second book yet. So I'm going to do a vlog for the first 2 books. But this is the first book in the Legacy of God series. And it was fantastic. And I'm so glad I went back and Rina Kent's backlist because that's what I've been doing. If you don't know, I've been reading all of Rina Kent's backlist in her reading order to get to this series, and I've been vlogging my experience. I will put up a link to my playlist because I finally created the playlist just for Rina Kent vlogs. I'll you know, try to remember to put up a card here, but definitely check that out. I've vlogged every book, so I'm so excited to finally get to this point, and I'm glad I read those because you kind of can connect more to these characters and knowing who their parents were and the dynamic and stuff. So I'll go a lot more into detail on my vlog, obviously, so you can check that out. But this is basically had a lot of Sam Mariano Untouchable vibes to me. I didn't love it as much as Untouchable, but I thought it was really still very good read. I mean, not many heroes or psychopath heroes are going to touch Carter Mahoney for me, but Killian is really great. So in this we have Killian and Glendon, and the reason that this had Untouchable vibes to me is we have another forced blowjob in like the first couple chapters of this book, which is kind of basically what happens in Untouchable. In this, it's a very different situation though. Glendon, one of her good friends, had unalived himself. He drove his car off of a cliff, and she's really going through a lot of depression and issues, and she ends up kind of sneaking out at night and going to that cliff to like be there, and she's been having dark thoughts. So she's kind of in that element of dark thoughts, maybe thinking about doing the same. at the edge of the cliff, and she kind of slips a little bit, but Killian shows up, catches her, and he's basically kind of holding her at the edge of the cliff where she's almost falling, and he's not pulling her up. And he basically says, you know, you're going to have to do something for me if you want my help. And he basically makes her give him a blowjob right at the edge of that cliff. And it's a very, like, dangerous element type of thing. She's never even done anything sexually with somebody, so she's pretty freaked out. She feels it's pretty a tough situation, a very non-consent type of situation. But later in the book, we kind of learn that Glendon, like, really likes this kind of dynamic and gets off on this kind of, you know, dubious consent, you know, forcing her type of thing. She kind of does get off on that. But after this event, they end up going to kind of like rival schools. It's very interesting. It gave me Kingmakers vibes too from Sophie Lark, where it's like, we have the posh British people going to like the one school, and then like that's more of like the Royal Elites, if you've read her Royal Elite series, those kind of kids going to this school, and then the other one is a bunch of Americans, like, and their ties to mafia and all of that kind of stuff at the other school. So in this, they're kind of on this island at these rival schools, but they keep kind of like running into each other, and Killian basically becomes obsessed with her and decides to bulldoze his way into her life and wants to kind of have them be together. He's very possessive, doesn't want her with anybody else. And so there's a lot of dubcon going on here. She also wants to find out what happened to her friend because she doesn't understand why he was going to kill himself and all of that. And so she's kind of looking into that. So this is a really good introduction to this new series. Basically, you have to introduce to all these characters that have ties to previous characters in books. So it does get a little complicated. I will say you have this, like, I don't know if you can see it, sorry. But there is at the beginning and kind of shows you who's who. So Glendon is the daughter of Levi and Astrid King, and that was in like the very first, way back in the Royal Elite series. And then he is the son of Asher and Rina, and that is, I think, the All the Truth and All the Lies duet, I believe. She's one of the twins. So you have a bunch of these new characters tied to all these characters from her previous books. So I did really enjoy this. He is a true psychopath. He doesn't really have feelings or empathy. His parents are kind of like aware of it, and he had a very good upbringing. His brother doesn't have a good relationship with him. You know, he wants to become a doctor because he likes looking what's on the inside. So he's right at that razor edge of like, he could turn in a different way of becoming a killer. And so he's always trying to be very tight and controlled so he doesn't go to that dark place. So he is definitely a psychopath. He's not going to be this changed character. That is who he is. So he's, you know, that's what this is. So it's kind of like her trying to figure out their dynamic, figure out how she can be with somebody like him. How do you feel when, like, she's falling for you, and can he even love her back? Like, is that possible? So I love all those types of things. I'm a sucker for, like, thinking of the mind of a psychopath is just fascinating. So I definitely really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this 5 stars. I just think it was a really good introduction to this new series, and but you might want to check your triggers. Obviously, there's that non-con scene, there's dubcon, there is choking, breathing, somnophilia, cock warming. We got lots of butt stuff. The best was that there is some kitty slapping, which literally Jen put in the front of my book, and it made me laugh so hard. So there's a lot of good kinky stuff in here, and I am so excited to continue with the series. Okay, so then I listened to an audiobook. I was trying to finish out another book, a really quick one for the readathon. So I listened to Spark of Fate by Tessa Hale. This is the first book in the Shifting Fate series. This is like a shifter, white shoes type of romance. It is kind of set in high school, which was the only thing I wasn't really loving. But I think it was a good introduction. In this, we have Rowan, and she, in the beginning, you find out about a very tragic thing that happened to her. Her and her sister got in a car accident, and her sister died. And now her parents have kind of moved to start fresh. And her mom is like in a very deep depression, like secluding herself, very abusive. I just gotta give trigger warnings because the mother this has major abusive parent vibes in it. This mother is horrible in this book. But so she's in a really bad place, and she's going to a new school. She ends up running to getting the interest of, I think, 5 different guys, that are all gonna be, I believe, werewolves. I think they're werewolves, if I remember. Sometimes I'm always like, is it a wolf shifter or werewolf? Anyways, so she ends up running into them, not knowing that she is also supernatural werewolf type of shifter. It turns out she was adopted, and that gets thrown in her face a lot, as like the mother's like, you're not my daughter, why couldn't you die? Like, it's horrible. She blames her for the accident, which is ridiculous. It's just, the mother is so abusive in this. It's hard to read. But she ends up kind of like basically like running into these guys. They are her fated mates. I will say a couple of the guys got more time, I think. And like, I don't really feel like I know all the guys. Again, this is, I think, a 3-book series. So it is available on Audible Plus. So definitely check it out. I just didn't feel like there was a lot of characterization or character development to distinguish all the guys. But a couple of them really stood out, like Anson. He was kind of like the playboy kind of guy that had like, he came off as a player and womanizer, but he's kind of playing off that, you know, but there's more to him. And there was also an older guy, I think he was, Vaughn, and he's Keen's brother. King is another hero. And he's kind of like a broody, doesn't want her to be his mate kind of thing. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of mean girl stuff going on in this. So it is very high school, very YA, young adult. And so I just didn't love the like bully girl type of thing in it. But I was interested. I love Tessa Hale's writing. It sucks you in. It was a really quick read. I listened to it in a couple hours. So I ended up giving that one 4 stars. I'm hoping that it gets a little bit better, where I'll learn more about the guys throughout the series. So it's like a little bit more. So I gave that 4 stars and 1.5 chilies. Okay, so then I listened to an ALC. I listened to The One I Want by Sloan. I've never read this author before, and I really loved this book. This is the first book in the Rolling Hills series, and this is a football star, single dad, kind of nanny book situation, but it didn't start out the way I was expecting like a nanny book to do. Because in this, we have Wes, and he is a pro football player, but he's nearing the end of his career. He's been married to the girl that he like fell in love with in college. They've been together for many years. They have 3 kids together, but he's ready to retire. He's really hurting, and he wants to retire. And so he comes home one day, and to his wife having packed up all her shit, and she's basically decided that she wants a divorce, and she's leaving him and her kids. So she's literally abandoning him and her kids, and he just is totally flabbergasted. He didn't see this coming, but she is a very selfish, like, about the money, and she didn't like that he was, like, basically retiring and all that kind of stuff. So she's horrible. So now he picks up and moves to his hometown where all of his main best guy friends are living, and he meets his parents' neighbor, which is this really cute, curvy, sassy woman. I forgot her name. Let me see. Betsy. And she's kind of flighty. She doesn't know what she wants to do. She's always changing jobs. She's kind of a mess in that way. But her parents kind of like cut her off. She came from money, but she's trying to do things on her own. So she's living next door to his parents, and she hits it off like with his kids. They like love her, and so he runs into her, and he's very attracted. but you know, it's kind of a bad time. He finally is like finalizing his divorce when all this is kind of happening, but he also ends up hiring her as his nanny because he realizes he's still playing football. It's his last season, but if they go, you know, to the Super Bowl or, you know, whatever, like he needs some help. So he ends up hiring her. So now we have the nanny kind of thing going on here. So they try to fight their feelings like usual, but they end up really being into each other and starting a relationship. What I loved about this was it didn't just end with them like getting together. It really showed their relationship and like things they would have to work through, because he does have some issues with what happened, everything that happened with his previous marriage, how his wife abandoned him and his kids. You know, he just got a divorce, all that kind of stuff. And so they really actually have to go through those kind of problems. So I thought the third act conflict was really needed because it was realistic and it needed to happen so that they could work through those kind of issues to be a good couple. So I really loved this. I thought it was really cute. It was narrated by Chris Chambers and Stephanie Rose. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 2.5 chilies. And then I listened to another ALC. I listened to Shatterproof by Xavier and Neal. This is the second book in the Hawthorne Enterprises series, but I think it's like basically the first part of a duet, which I didn't even know when I requested this. So that's on me. I didn't even look at it because it literally says duet like on the cover. So I didn't look at that, so that's on me, but this definitely ends in a cliffhanger, so just be aware. But I was really lucky because I think they had very limited ALC audiobook codes, and I got one, so I'm so thankful that I got to listen to the audiobook. This is more of like a romantic suspense, which I think Xavier Neal really does well, because I've only read one other book by them. But in this, we have Slater and Arlie, and I really loved that this was like a really cute friends to lovers type of book, because they work at the same security company. She's like a really brilliant, smart woman. And he is actually like, you know, ex-forces, kind of ex-military, and he, you know, helps rescue and do all those types of missions. And so they've basically been best friends for years. They got like stuck in an elevator one day together, and they just hit it off, and they've been best friends, and they just have such a great connection. They have such amazing banter in this, but they are both mutually pining for each other. So I really loved that. But Arlie is looking into some things that kind of get her in hot water, because somebody tries to attack her. And once she is attacked, basically Slater takes it on himself to be her bodyguard, and he moves her into his house. So now we have like a forced proximity type of thing. And these two have been wanting each other for years. So that's about to combust, you know? So they basically finally acknowledge their attraction and that they both want to be together, and it gets pretty hot. But with all the action and the danger of what's going on with her, that is where like the cliffhanger leaves us. So they are like together, they're doing good, but we have a cliffhanger ending with her in danger. So that's kind of how it ends. So I kind of was irritated with it being a cliffhanger, but that's my own fault. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I do gotta say the narrators did a good job, except I don't know if it was just the speed I was listening to. It usually doesn't affect me, but like the female narrator, it felt very choppy and like weird pauses, and it just wasn't flowing. But I loved the male narrator. So I ended up giving that one again 4 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, so we're at the last book already, and this is the one that took me a few days to read. And honestly, it's not this book's fault; it's me. But because I was loving it as I was reading it. So I read When Hearts Surrender by Victoria Loom. I'm really lucky to be on her ARC team, and she's such a sweet and like kind author, and I've been loving her books this last year. This is the 3rd book in the Orchid series. And what I loved about this is it was so different than the other two, because it has more gothic kind of mysterious, spooky, like different things going on, different vibes, and I really loved that. In this, we have Maxwell Anderson, and he is the older twin of the hero from the previous book. The previous book I gave 6 stars. I don't know what it was. I freaking loved it. So this is Ryland's twin brother. He's the older by like a couple minutes or whatever. So he's the firstborn Anderson. And he has basically really been reclusive, kind of, doesn't want to be in the public eye. Ryland was always having to be the face of their company because Maxwell suffers from severe anxiety where he has panic attacks, can't really speak in public, and he like melts down. And so I really love the anxiety rep that was dealt with in this book. I thought it was handled really well. And so he is kind of forced now to be in the public eye because Ryland has stepped away. He was miserable in that position. And so, Maxwell knows he needs to step up. And so he happens to do a speech too and has a meltdown in public. So the company is not doing well. And they basically decide, okay, now's the perfect time for our arranged marriage so that we can, kind of show you in a different light and all this stuff. Now, the thing is why they're going to do an arranged marriage is they've done this for the firstborn Andersons because of a family curse. So they believe that they have a family curse where every firstborn Anderson, if he falls in love, the woman that he falls in love with ends up dying. Some tragic accident happens and they die. So he has basically lived his life believing in this curse because he had been married before, right out of high school. And that woman, the tragic accident happened and she died, and he blames himself and like the curse. So he basically doesn't want to ever fall in love. So he's really shut himself off from people. So in this, before we get to the arranged marriage, he happens to go out one night. He likes to race. His company owns like the floor and like the orchid and all that kind of stuff. And so they have these like good street racing things they put on too. And so he happens to go do that one night, and that's when he meets Belle. She does give a different name here, and he gives a different name. But they hit it off. Like, she ends up going in his race car with him, and they spend like the whole night together. They have a passionate kiss, but he basically like pushes her away because he can feel the connection instantly, and he can't afford to fall in love and have a woman die. So lo and behold, who ends up being his arranged marriage? The future wife is going to be Belle. And so now they're in arranged marriage, and they're living in his kind of gothic type of mansion he has. There's lots of weird sounds. There's lots of suspicious stuff going on, and you kind of learn about the history of his family. And the opening kind of showed where this curse kind of comes from, because like one of the I think it was like in 1860, one of their, ancestors basically had fallen in love with I think she was like the housekeeper or whatever, and got her pregnant, and she thought he spurned her, and she ended up like killing herself. And so, yeah. So there's a lot of mystery going on with like the curse, how these, all of a sudden now Belle's having like these weird accidents. She's feeling sick, like different things going on. And is the curse happening to her? The thing that will drive you crazy is Maxwell basically pushes her away and doesn't want to be with her because he already knows he'll fall in love with her, and he cannot fall in love. So it's a very slow burn, even when they do finally get sexual, because one of the things they need to do is have a sex so that he can have an heir. That's part of it. Also, I will give you a trigger warning because Belle does have issues getting pregnant. So she is, and they kind of didn't disclose that information to him. So she has fertility issues, and so she really wants to get pregnant too. So even though they are having sex, it's like he's like doing it pretty rough, and no sex, like no kissing or whatever, because he's trying to keep himself away from her. So it's a very slow build to when he finally is going to cave and they can be together, but they have to figure out this curse. And is she going to die? What is behind all these accidents? All that. So I ended up really loving this. I think it was really beautiful. She has such amazing storytelling. There's so much romance in it. I love that Victoria Lum takes the time to build the characters, to show them have all these interactions. So you see them falling in love with each other instead of like other books. It's just so like fast, or we're told they're in love. You really feel it in her story. So I really did love that. I thought the whole gothic vibe thing was very good. So I loved it. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3 chilies because the sex was really hot. So those are the books that I read this week. I probably still made this video long by talking like a long time again, but hopefully it's not too bad. I'm sorry I don't have too much to talk about, but I will be hopefully doing better this next week with my reads, getting back to some more audiobooks, and we'll see how it goes. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment down below, and make sure to like the video. I appreciate all your support. All right, you guys, I will see you guys on the next one.